and welcome to Wine Library TV. I am your host, Gary Vaynerchuk, and this, my friends, is the Thunder Show, aka the internet's most passionate wine program. And today we have a very exciting episode for many reasons, because we have a New York City marathon runner in our presence, and also a longtime friend. I visited your winery 2004, so 6 years ago. Have been a fan for a long time. Why don't you tell the Vayner Nation who you are and a little bit about yourself?
I'm a very idiosyncratic vigneron. The winery is called Clos Mimi, and I use the title vigneron because I was a French winemaker in a previous lifetime, and all my wines are handcrafted with French tradition, French experience, French biodynamic philosophies, French names on the labels, etc., etc.
Would you say you're a Francophile?
Huge. Francophile, hedonist. Don't want to get into politics, but sometimes I subscribe more to the French politics than the American politics.
Don't open that can here.
Yeah.
They get fired up real fast.
No, I have a lot of respect for Bordeaux, Burgundy, the Rhone. Love champagne. I'll drink champagne over domestic sparkling any day.
Now, you ran the marathon yesterday.
First marathon ever.
Tell me about how that got... First of all, you didn't tell them your name. Did you notice that part?
Tim Spear. Sorry about that.
No.
The Spear is all caps, like the French.
Nice. And so what made you...
Can I give him my Twitter name, too?
You can give him anything you want. We'll link up everything.
It's Club Mimi on Twitter, C-L-U-B. Don't go to Clos Mimi on Twitter if you want.
What is Clos Mimi on Twitter?
It's frozen.
It's frozen. Can you get it?
You can follow me, but you're not going to see any new tweets. All my new tweets are going to be on Club Mimi.
Oh, so Clos Mimi
but
is
it's
your
too
Twitter
long of a
account.
story. Oh, Clos Mimi is my original business Twitter account.
Yep.
Club Mimi is the new business Twitter account.
Got it.
And
that's that.
You're one of my mentors for Twitter, so.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I follow you, of course. And
so tell me about the marathon. How did you? Why is this your first marathon?
So I was out here in July when we were going to do this.
Yes.
3 months ago, 4 months ago, and Per Se is my favorite restaurant. Bouchon Bakery is my favorite bakery in the country. I walked into that running store at Columbus Circle and said, "Hey, when's the marathon? Maybe I need a challenge in my life. Maybe I need."
Had this been running through your mind ever before?
Not a marathon, no.
Because it sounds like a weird little thing. Like, I don't know, I need a challenge. Let me run the New York Marathon.
Well, a lot's going on in my
matter.
life personally, and I've been running, 10Ks on the beach with my Siberian Husky for the last 2 years. And my doctor said, "I want you running 3 times a week. I want you to specifically run 3 times a week." It was my prescription to just keep my head focused, stay grounded, and because I do a lot of business in New York, I thought, well, I need a challenge, so why not do the world's largest marathon as my first marathon, and maybe I can get some wine business from the exposure, the publicity. Maybe my jersey will be in the New York Times today.
I like this jersey.
Well, the one I didn't wear this yesterday, but the one that I was wearing yesterday. Well,
you're a big hockey fan.
Thunder Nation, Gary and I are big hockey fans. At least he was when I first met him.
For sure.
A long time ago. I'm a hockey super fan. I love the LA Kings. Born in LA. My stepsister used to work for Jerry Buss, and and the same year that she worked for Jerry Buss, Gretzky got traded to the Kings. So it started slowly, but in fact, it was kind of sad to see Gretzky get traded to the Blues and the Rangers. But just love the Kings. The year I met Mimi, we went to the finals, so that was kind of cool. That was very auspicious. We didn't win, thanks to that wonderful Montreal coach and Marty McSorley. But just know everything about the Kings. I donate Clos Mimi to the Kings' annual fundraiser, which was yesterday, of all days, on the marathon, so I missed this year's. I've met Luke, I've met all the players, Dustin. By the way, Dustin's the only one on Twitter. On the Kings so far, but I'm working on that.
Pushing them through?
Just, my kids have been to their first hockey game, less than 12 months old. my daughter was almost born opening night of Staples Center against the Bruins.
No kidding.
Because it was so loud in there. Mimi was going into labor on the way home.
No kidding.
So I have a lot of stories about Staples Center.
Tell me about, you mentioned, which is something I didn't know. You mentioned in your former life you were a French winemaker. What does that mean? You did winemaking in France?
It's related to this wine.
Okay.
Which is called Petit Russe. It's my second label.
That's going to be the first one we taste. So let's get into that. Okay.
I fell in love with...
What's the suggested retail of Petit Russe?
Right now it's on my website for $25 even.
Okay, good. So that's the suggested. All right. So Petit Russe.
Fell in love with this painting by Renoir that I saw at the Orsay the same year I was apprenticing at Lynch-Bage,
okay,
which was 1991. Took Mimi back to the Orsay in 98.
Take me back to 91. What got you to the place where you even were apprenticing in Lynch-Bage? What made you first fall in love with wine and made you think that...
I graduated UC Davis in 1990. I was begging my professors to let me do my last year at Bordeaux, at the University of Bordeaux. They wouldn't let me. My mom went on a personal vacation to France, and my mom's a photographer, and I said, just take pictures of the vineyards. I need to learn more about French vineyards. And she stopped in Pauillac at Cordillon-Bage for lunch. They made her 2 appointments that afternoon. She was with her girlfriends from Beverly Hills. My mom lives in L.A., who speak French, so they made her 1 appointment at Lynch-Bage, 1 at Mouton. Mouton said, and this is my mom's idea, do you have any internships for my son? I'd like to get him to live in France for a little bit. Mouton said, we'll hire him for a month, and then he can bounce around. Lynch-Bage says, we'll hire him for a year. We'll take care of the visa, the work permit. We'll give him a place to stay. We'll pay him.
Wow.
Couldn't have been a better deal for me. And I was 6 months out of Davis, didn't have any full-time jobs lined up.
How did you even get to, when did wine first nip you? I mean, you're in Davis, so that means wine's already part of your life. So, take me back even another chapter. When did wine first enter the lexicon?
The story that I like to tell is my dad loved 7-7s when he got home from a hard day's work. So I would mix at 12 years old the perfect 7-7. Yeah. But he never liked he never liked Seagrams because he didn't want me using the good bourbon.
Right.
So I'd use his cheap bourbon, but the 7-Up had to be fresh. So I always said to myself, maybe I'll be a bartender someday, get in the alcohol business. I wasn't raised with wine. I discovered wine my sophomore year at Davis, going wine tasting through the Santa Ynez, Santa Barbara wine country with an old girlfriend of mine.
And that nipped you?
That nipped, and then reading Wine Spectator. My early mentors were Randy Dunn, a couple other that I can't really recall right now, but I just fell in love with the romantic side of the wine business. I knew it had a chemistry and scientific side, but I was more attracted to the artistic side, and that's how I make the wine today.
Got it.
But going back to the previous lifetime, when I saw this painting, I didn't quite understand the attraction to this little girl that Renoir painted, and when I started to make Petit Russe, first vintage was 2001, I had this epiphany at the Getty Museum as I was researching this little girl's life, that I must have been her father in her previous lifetime. She was...
That you?
Yes. I was reconnecting with my daughter. I mean, you know what it's like to have a daughter now. And my daughter was born in 1999. She'll be 11, less than a month. So she's named after this little girl that Renoir, when I say little, 20 years old.
Sure.
I know the day she passed away. I could never find her birthday, but let's say she died February 25th, 1879. And she's in all his famous paintings, but the one portrait of her isn't so famous. It's called La Liseuse, and it's a picture of her reading a book in his studio, and the sunlight is coming over her shoulder, bouncing off the book, and just lighting up her face like an angel. And the eyes and the eyebrows and the nose and the lips just hit me. Just something hit, maybe I had her in a previous lifetime. I think this is a little, you know me, you know my reputation.
I'm into this.
I think I was a winemaker at DRC. I think I was making wines from Romani Conti. My email address is romaniconti1856 at gmail.com. Don't send me too many emails if you don't like the rest of the stories. But That vintage achieved 16.5% natural alcohol, according to Richard Olney's book on Romani Conti. And I have this affinity for making high alcohol Syrahs. So perhaps I was there. And that was about, 10 years before Phylloxera hit Burgundy. So I can see how we could achieve 16% Burgundies over there. And then the timing is perfect with this little girl's lifetime and with Renoir and when he became successful. And then I could also throw in a tangent that I'm a huge opera fan, and Puccini, La Bohème, Mimi, and Rodolfo, that was all written around the same time. Henri Murger was the one who wrote the play for La Bohème, and then Puccini turned it into an opera in 1896. So I like
Mott, you're getting an education here today. I'm like captivated.
I'm trying
by the
to
stories.
speed this up
don't worry, I'm enjoying
you, Gary,
it. No, for me, I mean, they may be mad, but you know, I don't think so. It's captivating stuff. And so you go and you work at Lynch Bosch. How long did you stay there?
A year. I had to commit to a year.
And then what happened?
Got to see 5 hockey games in Maribel before I got home, which was awesome.
That's amazing.
Olympic hockey is really bitching. The U.S. didn't go very far that year, but I got home. I got a full-time job at Justin, 2 vintages working for Justin. That's what got me to Paso in the first place. And then I took a summer internship at Tablas Creek, 5 years before they built the winery. Made some really good connections there. Then I moved to...
Did you travel to Beaucastel because of the relationship?
No, but while I was at Lynch Bosch, I took a couple vacations and went to Beaucastel. So I knew the property pretty well, and Bob Haas and Jean-Pierre and Francois. So, and they remembered me from coming over as a Lynch Bosch intern. So I stayed with Shop. I stayed with Jean-Louis for a whole week. My first vacation from Lynch Bosch, I went to Hermitage, was his guest, borrowed his sister's car because she was at college, and he set me up with all these appointments for the first time I ever met Marcel, Clapp.
Incredible.
Just a couple other icons over there that are now my mentors, French mentors. And I did have an epiphany having lunch with Jean-Louis one day in Tournon. We were on the other side of the river, and I remember calling my dad from a phone booth after he had to go back to work. And I said, if I ever have my own label, I want to make Syrah. And that was July of 91. And then I started Clos Mimi in August of 96.
And the first vintage of Clos Mimi was
96.
The 96 vintage. Amazing stuff. All right, so let's taste this first wine before we turn this into a 7-hour movie. This is the 2000 and what vintage?
26.2 mile movie.
Yeah, exactly.
2006.
Got it. All right. So what are we getting on the snippy snip here? Aromatically, I think there's a lot of red fruit coming through, which I like quite a bit. What are you picking up on the nose?
Meat.
There's always a gamey component to your wines. I mean, is that something that you're getting out of your vineyards? Is it something that you focus on accentuating?
With this wine, because I don't use any new oak, it's coming out of the vineyard. It's terroir driven.
Yeah,
for sure.
So this is
my experience, right?
What is it being aged in?
5 to 10-year-old Chateau barrels.
Do you feel that new oak is being overused in the U.S.?
No.
You do not.
Australia, yes.
But you think the U.S. has a good balance in general?
Don't quote me good balance, but
right. But just not overusing it.
I would say there's a lack of understanding of how to use it.
Okay.
If you haven't been to the old world and seen how the great French winemakers or Italian winemakers use it, but I wouldn't say unless they're using chips, unless it's Chuck type oak, they're not abusing oak.
Do you feel any passion towards any of the other old world? I mean, we see this enormous affinity exploding out of your face for France. Is there a sensibility and appreciation for Italy, Spain,
Portugal? I love ports. Some of my winemaking, because the last wine has some residual sugar. A lot of Portuguese port winemaking goes into. In fact, the reason I tread by foot, pigeage, all my single vineyards is because I visited Quinta de Noval, thanks to my cork company in '98, and I saw the granite lagars and how they make Noval every year, especially the Nacional. Once I uncovered the truth of Nacional, I had to I Love Lucy every vintage of Clos Mimi after that.
How long does it take you to I Love Lucy the wines?
They're about 30 minutes per pigeage, and I'll get about 7 days of cold soak, no cap, no everything's wild yeast on the single vineyards. Once the cap comes up, the yeast gets started. It's about, depending how cold the tank still is, I don't refrigerate my tanks, let's say 10-day fermentation, and then I'm a big believer in extended maceration. So the last wine we're going to taste is probably 80 days on the skins. I drain the tank based on the full moon, so that was
so you get
3
into
full moons.
You get into the biodynamic thought process.
Big time.
So you're telling all the maniacs that are watching that your feet are part of the flavor profile that we're picking up on here.
Yes.
That makes me happy.
As much as Noval and Fonseca or anybody else who does it in Portugal, it's part of those wines too.
How many people are helping you do that?
Just me.
You're the only person.
Yeah. Occasionally, I'll clean my kids' feet and throw them in there.
That's cool.
Every other vintage, so they get a feel for it.
It's kind of cool.
If they don't like it, I pull them out. If they like it, I take a picture.
That's awesome.
Get it on the website.
So this is coming across really nice. As you know, I've been pretty fond and aware of this wine for a long time. This feels a little bit more oomphy to me than maybe some of the prior vintages. The body on the palate is pretty. There's great weight to this wine, which I appreciate, and the finish I thought was exceptional.
It's the most concentrated vintage ever. Very low yields for all 3 vineyards that were blended into this vintage. Call it 2.5 tons per acre, which is crazy for $25 a bottle, but
it's how you roll.
In fact, I had to declassify the Shell Creek vineyard in 06 and the Brave Oak vineyard in 06 just to make enough, just to fill up the tanks that I just have for Petit Russe. And then I extended the élevage, the barrel aging.
So some of the really premium single vineyards snuck into the...
Yes. There'll be no 06 Shell Creek release. There'll be no 06 Brave Oak release because of this wine.
And do you feel like that's what's really factoring into this kind of...
Not so much as I think
power?
I think it's having my own winery now.
You've got more control.
I've got more control. I've got brand new equipment.
I'll tell you what blows me away about this wine. It's so big, yet there's literally no heat. Like zero, and you guys know how crazy I get with heat. It is a little chilled, so maybe that's benefiting a little bit, but it's showing extremely well. It feels like a different caliber of wine than what I'm used to from this label.
It's 15-0. All my labels are, within 0.1. I have to round them off to 0.0, 0.5 for the export markets. But this is the only wine, by the way, that I use commercial yeast. Because I'm making 3,000 cases a year, I can't afford to use indigenous yeast on that much production. So I get a little higher conversion with the commercial yeast, but I think what really helps the wine is going more time in barrel.
Why don't we yap on yeast a little bit? I think it's a category of winemaking that's talked about so little. It's something that really strong winemakers, I think, spend a lot of time. It's funny when I have dinner with a winemaker or hang out, it's funny how much allocation to yeast conversation can happen in comparison to what's being talked about yeast-wise out there. What's your take on yeast?
If I can use indigenous yeast, I will do it every time. If I can.
Is it really expensive?
No, it's risky. It's free. The yeast is, indigenous yeast you don't have to pay for.
Good point.
You just have to know how to harness it.
So the real reason that on a 3,000 case production wine you won't use it is you're worried about controlling
stuck fermentations. If you remember the 02 vintage, I had some problems with
I
stuck fermentation going off in the bottle after it was bottled. The first 01 and 02 were indigenous yeast. I was only making 1,100 cases at the time, but when I bumped it to 2,500, 3,000 cases, I didn't want to, but Polaner, people like that were telling me you've got to be more safe with making a higher production wine. So I started using a very special yeast, very low dosage, like less than the minimum required on the container when you buy the yeast. Just still trying to stress out the commercial yeast. But if production wasn't an issue, everything would be indigenous. Because I've got it down on the small lots. It's really easy for me. I've got a lot of experience. You know, sometimes I can't get an 18.5% alcohol wine dry, but I push the yeast as far as I can go.
And what about outside of your own wines? And let's put a little more of a twist on this. Outside of France, are there any wines that you've had lately that are kind of, you know, speaking to you or you're interested in? How about white wine? I don't have any feel for your white wine preferences or like or dislike.
If I can throw some love out to Lyle Fast, he kind of
Sure.
got me into Rieslings a couple years ago.
Yep.
Lyle attended my winemaker dinner at Per Se, and he was at Chambers Street. I can't remember, Crush or Chambers Street. But following him on his blog and now on Twitter, I know he's a huge Riesling fan.
Huge.
And that's my passion, especially for whites. I don't really follow white Burgundies or white Rhones. It's or white Bordeaux for that matter. And I won't drink anything white in California. I don't have an interest in, because I don't want to make white wines for Clos Mimi under the Clos Mimi label. But Rieslings are cool. And after meeting Olivier Humbrecht and Ostertag and some of these guys at the biodynamic seminars with Jolie and Carbonier, I just have so much respect for what they're doing, even though they're not making red wines.